often people are talking about and giving advice about things they wish they knew before we got married. But what about before you even get engaged? Well, before I get into all that, let me welcome you back to my channel. My name is Ayanna, and this is Beyond Committed, where we talk about everything from life, faith, family, marriage, motherhood, and everything in between, and we take them beyond. If this is your first time here, welcome, and I'm so glad you stopped by. And to make sure you're not a stranger, make sure you press that subscribe button below and then turn your notifications so you don't miss a video. All right, now let's dive right in. My husband Eric and I love to take trips down memory lane, where we talk about when we met, when we were dating, when we got engaged, our wedding, getting married, and newlywed stage, all of those things, which is always fun. And in a previous video, we actually talked about how we met, how I asked him out, and he told me no. But that's still like up for debate as far as he is concerned. So make sure you check out that video to see who's really telling the truth, because it's really me. But I'm not going to get into that right now. While we were taking a trip down memory lane the other day, I was thinking, we always talk about kind of what we wish we knew before we got married. But what about what we wish we knew before we got engaged? And that sent us on a journey. It was a really great conversation about, okay, things we wish we knew, things we wish we could share with others. And we picked 5 things that we wish we knew before getting engaged that we want to share with you. One of the things I wish I knew prior to getting engaged, especially from a bride's perspective, is from the groom's perspective, pretty much once he asks you to marry him, it's pretty much like he said, I do.
Exactly. There's a lot that happens and transpires in the relationship and growth, but for a guy that's like serious and authentic really in his love and admiration for you, getting up to the point of asking you to marry him is essentially like the journey to marriage, right? The only thing that stands in between popping the question of will you marry me and actually saying I do is time for the majority of guys from that perspective. And so I think it's something to think about in the context of, getting engaged.
And I think that's also something that you really need to be mindful of, because it's like you're getting engaged, it has a purpose. It's like, okay, I want you to be my wife. He's saying that, will you marry me? And it's like, yes. So yes means that's, you're really answering that question then. And yes, there's a wedding and there's all this, but that is a lot of time that you pretty much determine how long you're going to take. It's no definitive, time in which you have to wait. I mean, you can essentially get married that day if you wanted to. Most people, take a little bit more time than that, but it's so important that as the bride to be or the soon to be fiance, you're mindful of that, because if your, husband to be is serious about it, he's serious about marrying you, then he really just wants to get this show on the road. So be mindful of that as well.
Yeah. So one of the other key things to think about, again, coming from a guy's perspective, is the time, right? I underestimated the daily coverage of wedding stuff every day. From guests, location, types of food, flowers. It's overwhelming. It's too much. And again, getting back to the earlier point, right, and the fact that once I ask you to marry me, that kind of is it. So all the additional fanfare that comes from not only the bride-to-be, but friends and family, it's just kind of like, can we speed up this process a little bit?
So for the bride, and this is something I am grateful that I learned quickly. I didn't know before, but I learned quickly, was that we got to pick our battles. Sometimes they don't really care about the place settings, or what kind of calligraphy you use, or what shade of blue it is, or if there's even flowers. Do they like the food? Is whatever is the bartender serving going to be something they want to drink? Is it going to be a good DJ? Other than that, that's pretty much it. So before you get engaged, be mindful of that, realizing that overwhelming your soon-to-be husband with the details of this day can be a little daunting and can cause, some rub between you two. So just be mindful that, okay, yes, your wedding day is a big thing. And yes, it is one stop on this journey in your, quest to be a wife and all of that. But it is just a stop. So don't get so caught up in trying to make this day all of this and trying to incorporate them in every little detail that you get lost in what it truly is about. It is that you two becoming one. And the third thing that we wish we knew before getting engaged was that planning your wedding should not be the main event. You should be spending more time planning your marriage.
Yes, indeed, right? So with all this focus, it's like an over-index on the day and these things, right? We need to think about more practical things in terms of how do you manage life? What's your schedule, your energy like? How do you manage money, right? How do you think about some of these more practical things and what it looks like to be living together, trying to get on the same page and becoming one, and directing a good amount of energy there outside of just the day.
Yeah. And I think it's also one of those things that we aren't really focused on because it's a day that you've been dreaming of. I know as a woman there I had this idea of what I wanted, and I remember when we were planning our wedding, at first he's originally from Detroit, so we were like, okay, I'm gonna do it there and all of this. And then as we kind of started planning stuff, I really didn't want to do that. I always wanted to get married on an island somewhere. And I was trying to like tailor my vision to appease the masses. And then one day he was like, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want to get married on an island. So he was like, let's just get married on an island. And that was like a key thing for us and for me really to realize that yes, this day was important. Yes, planning this and having this ideal was important, but it was so much more important that we talked about things and we were intentional about, okay, what do we really want from our relationship? What do we really want from our marriage? And to plan accordingly to kind of achieve that, whether that is planning regarding this special day or where do you want to live or what are your careers going to look like or do you want to have kids or when do you want to have kids and, are you okay with traveling? Are you not okay? Do you want to live close to family? Do you not? All of these little things that matter to your overall life that may not necessarily matter to your wedding day because it's just a day. So it's so important that as the bride to be and the husband to be, you're mindful that yes, your wedding is important. Yes, buying the perfect ring and, planning this elaborate, proposal and all that are great things. And those are memories that you cherish. But the memories that you hold on to the most are the ones that you actually are creating when you're already married. And another thing that I wish I knew before getting engaged and also before even getting married is that you can't get so tunnel vision that you lose sight of the things around you and you lose sight of your own goals and visions as well. For example, in relationships, we're imperfect. We are imperfect people. You will have an imperfect marriage. I mean, that's just life. And it's so important that along the way, you're not collecting red flags that you should be mindful of, especially as a soon-to-be bride and and you want to get engaged. You're kind of looking to, this day and you want to be a wife and you want marriage and you want these things to be perfect in your mind. But along the way, you see things that may not be so perfect. You see things within your relationship that you're like, maybe I should take a pause. Maybe I should take a step back. But you're so focused on wanting to be the bride or you're so focused on wanting to be the wife that you lose sight of, okay, the things that are going on around you. So it's so important that as women and men that we are mindful of everything going on around us and listening to the advice and the wisdom and the counsel of those around us. Because although, you are independent and you have your own thoughts and you're two people that are in the relationship, your friends and family who really know, care about you and love you have some great insight that you may not necessarily see yourself or a perspective that you may not see because, you only have one way of seeing things. So it's so important that in the journey to either getting the ring or becoming the bride that you don't get so caught in the vision and the tunnel vision of what you want that you lose sight of everything going on around you.
All right, so one of the last things that we'd like to highlight is the need for perspective change. And when I say perspective change, I mean starting the process of you two that now are engaged becoming one. It really, oftentimes, one of the vows exchanged, to becoming one in that process, it's like you really should start it early mentally to then prepare your hearts and minds of like what that looks like because that's the destination of where you're trying to get to. And I would also add that especially for men, it's important to start to learn how to die to self. What I mean by that is essentially you don't come first all the time, right? So getting your mind going, okay, having the curiosity, what do you want? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? These are like light things, basic things though, that help you get to shift out of just primarily thinking about yourself to a certain degree, but also preparing you to love your wife sacrificially as you head up your future home and your marriage, that your heart and mind will be prepared for that leadership.
And for the future wives, there are some things that we have to do as well. And it also says in the Bible how it says a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. That means you got to be a wife first. So there are some things in which you have to do. There's respect and some honor that has to be there for you as a woman. There is some submission that needs to happen. And it's not something that's going to be automatic when you're standing in front of the minister saying, I do. It's not an automatic shift. It's not something that, okay, because I'm a wife today, that means everything about me is going to change. No, those are some things you have to be cultivating. Those are some things you have to be growing through. And it takes a process and it takes some time. So even before you say yes to the ring, be mindful of there are some things that you should be preparing for as a woman to become a wife, and that perspective change needs to happen for you as well, just so you're prepared, because you will become against some things that you're not sure of, that you're like, oh, where did that come from? And as you grow together, as your soon-to-be husband grows in his walk as a man and in his role as a husband, you're going to be growing as a wife as well. So it's so important that as you do that together, you're making sure that you both have the right perspective changes. All right, that's it for today. And I want to know, if you are yet to be engaged, what is one thing you would like to know? Let us know in the comment box below and we'll make sure to answer it. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and make sure you press the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a video. All right, now until we see you again, bye.